in all the live stories for us. OK, joining us now is Labour's Housing Secretary, Steve Reid. Mr Reid, thank you so much for joining us today. Firstly, how are you feeling right now?
Well, slightly tired after a long night and a lot of steps yesterday, but of course, you know, it's been a tough night. If you're looking at the results that are still coming in, and there's no point trying to say anything other than that. I've been involved in politics a long time. I was a council leader myself. I know a lot of the councillors, and I feel really sorry for really hard-working people that have lost their seats tonight. So every lesson, I've always thought this, every election teaches you something you need to know, and we need to reflect and learn from what the voters have just told us so that we can focus better on meeting their aspirations as a government.
Hello, I'm Bev Turner. Now, it can feel like the money in our bank accounts at the moment does not keep up with the cost of living, and maybe there's a solution. I'm here today with the CEO of Tally Money, Cameron Parry. Cameron, what is Tally Money?
Well, Bev, with Tally Money, you get a current account and a debit card, but instead of pounds, you use milligrams of gold as your everyday money.
So why gold?
Gold traditionally is a great store of value. It has, on average, gone up at over 11% per annum for the last 25 years against the pound. It's tripled in value in the last decade. And in the last 2 years alone, it's increased by 50% against the pound. Banks' savings products just can't compete with that level of growth.
But this isn't just about gold. This is about a currency that you guys have created at Tally Money. Explain it to me as though I'm an idiot.
So, look, people need to be able to hold their earnings and build their savings in a money that retains its value and remains in their legal control and remains theirs to access, away from government control.
Great. You had me at not exposed to government control.
You should feel safe and happy with your money. You should have peace of mind the more money you see in your bank balance, and that's the type of thing we're trying to deliver, and give people choice in the type of money they get to use every day.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you.
Steve Reid, do you feel sorry for those Labour councillors who've lost their seats because you think it's actually through no fault of their own? Many of these local politicians doing a great job in their wards, but they're being punished due to a wider dislike of the Labour government and indeed the Labour leadership.
Well, there's always multiple factors involved in local elections. You know, I won a local election myself, as you'll know, when I was a council leader. We won the council from opposition and went into power completely against the run of play because we focused on the right local issues. And indeed, knocking on doors, as I've done an awful lot over recent weeks, it's very often local issues that people will refer to. But of course, there's a national context too. So it's a mixture of both of those things, if I'm really honest.
Steve, we keep coming back to the same problem here. Labour has a Keir Starmer problem. People would vote for Labour, and this is anecdotal on the doorsteps this morning, talking to people. People would vote for Labour if it wasn't for Keir Starmer. Why is your leader so unpopular?
Well, you know, I just heard Chris Hopper there using a phrase that I've said earlier on. We don't want to go doom scrolling through leader after leader. The Conservatives tried that. Between 2016 and 2024, when they lost, they had 5 different prime ministers, 7 chancellors, 9 education secretaries. It didn't resolve the problem. It actually just meant that the economy flatlined, public services didn't improve, and they got their worst result in their entire 200 years of history.
So you are backing him for the next general election, Steve Reid. You're backing Sir Keir Starmer for the next election.
Yes, I am. He's the right man to lead us through. He was the man who won us that great big majority in 2024. But also, we've seen what happens to parties when they do what the Conservatives did and just keep switching through prime ministers rather than focusing on delivering the change the public wants to see. Now, I've spoken to a lot of people on their doorsteps. I know people are feeling disappointed and frustrated. I know they're impatient for change. They want their wages to go up through the economy doing better. They want their high streets to look better. There's too many of them are run down and shabby today. They want change that they can feel in their communities, but we don't deliver that by keeping on changing the guy at the top. You deliver it by driving through the agenda we were elected to deliver. My job is to get more homes built. Last year, this government built more social and council homes than any other government in 35 years. People don't feel all of that change yet. We've got to keep on making the change until people perceive it in their own lives and in their own communities.
Yeah, but you're talking about perception, Steve. People are living a reality, and the reality is they are feeling worse off. They're not optimistic about the future. They have a real issue with Keir Starmer, and they are voting, in many cases, for either the Greens or Reform. Yeah, which way should Labour jump? Which way are you going to be more powerful now? Do you move more to the left or do you move more to the right? You're hemorrhaging on both sides.
Well, my view is we shouldn't lurch to the left or to the right. We should lurch towards the communities that British people are part of. I think we need to focus much more on the places people belong to. I see this in politics, not just in this country, but abroad as well. Joe Biden did it. Politicians standing up and talking about billions of investment in this, that or the other. What does it mean for somebody's hometown? You've got to make change real for where people live, for their family, for their home, on their doorstep, in their high street, in their workplace. And I don't think we've focused enough on that. We talk too strategically. We don't talk in terms that make sense to ordinary people. So we have to do that. But at the same time, it's not just about talk. There has to be real change in people's lives. We're starting to see it. You know, we brought in the Renters' Rights Act, came into force just last week. That change has happened, but it's not going to be affecting a lot of people's lives yet. They'll feel it as we move forward over coming months, and that's the case with many of the policies that we're delivering as a government.
Steve, you have been in power now for almost 2 years, and voters are feeling change brought in by the Labour Party. I know you mentioned one that's only come in last week, but 2 years is quite a long time to make a lot of change already, and the results we're seeing at the moment seems to suggest that people do want a different person inside the building on our screens right now, and that's number 10 Downing Street. As we're currently looking after these results, do you think that Nigel Farage is now much more likely to become the next Prime Minister?
I think there is a real threat that Nigel Farage could become Prime Minister, but that will be determined by whether or not this government can deliver the change the British public want to see. I don't think the public obsess about personalities in the way that, to be honest, politicians can do in Westminster or the media does. They want change in their lives. When I was knocking on doors, very, very rarely did people mention Keir Starmer to me. They would point to potholes. They would talk about their local high street. They would talk about the cost of housing. It's the real changes in people's lives they want to see. You know, in some cases I was able to point to change. I was speaking to one guy who was a pensioner whose pension had just gone up £550 last month. That's a big change that we're making. Or people seeing £100 cut in their energy bill. It's a start. It's not enough. We've got to keep on going until people really feel their lives are better. That is how we tackle the parties to our right or left that if we don't do a good enough job will come in and seek to take away that support.
Steve, just quickly and finally, you talk about personality. The two parties challenging you, the Green and Reform, they've got very, very strong personalities as leader, but you could argue there's not much substance behind them, and yet they are actually thumping you in most of the country.
Well, I think people are frustrated and people are angry. If you look at the normal 5-year terms of a parliament, these elections that come after 2 years, the ruling party tends to do badly. Now, that would normally happen by people going out and voting for the main opposition party. There's still too much anger with the Conservatives, so some people have voted for the Greens, some people have voted for Reform. But we hear them, we hear their anger, we hear their frustration, and we are determined to drive change faster because that is what the British people expect of us.
OK, Labour Housing Secretary Steve Reid, thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
OK, yeah, now it's time.